Hey pals! Welcome to our holly jolly episode of We Read It One Night, where we discuss Royal Holiday by Jasmine Guillory. Our older heroine falls in love with her hot British man while scamming a free vacation out of the British royal family. What could be better? Warning, this book will make you super hungry. Enjoy the show! I'm gonna go get some scones.
I have a surprise for you. Maybe I shouldn't ruin the surprise. I'll show you.
Rachel's now standing on her chair. You froze! Oh no! You froze!
My socks. Are you fucking kidding me?
Oh, I see them. Oh my gosh, they're cats! All right, 10 out of 10. This episode is already high up on the cat scale. They kind of look like Pikachu from the color. I saw the Princess Diana Kristen Stewart biopic yesterday, and first of all, Kristen Stewart has earned her Oscar nomination for sure, but the experience was almost ruined by the fact that there was a cryptocurrency advertisement before the movie. And I thought it was going to be like one of those inspirational car commercials, because it was Matt Damon like walking through this thing, pointing to inspirational people, like the Wright brothers were there and like astronauts were there. And so I thought it was going to be like go further with Mercedes or, but no, it was cryptocurrency.
Oh my gosh.
It was horrible. I was like, Matt Damon, why would you betray me like this? Also, but the reason I'm bringing this up in relation to this book is because both pieces of art take place at Sandringham House over Christmas. And I could not help, while finishing up this book today, picturing like Princess Diana just like running mournfully through the halls, like in the background of like half of these scenes. Vivian and Malcolm are going horseback riding, and like Princess Diana is just like, oh no, I hate the royal family, like her dress like flying behind her in the background.
So Kristen Stewart now I feel like she's building like a tradition of like Christmas movies that she's going to be in, because if this counts as a Christmas movie, like last Christmas she had that Netflix,
that
like
lesbian one,
the lesbian,
the horrible one where she should have ended up with Aubrey Plaza, and instead she ended up with her girlfriend.
Yeah. So if that's like the running theme, we're gonna get like a new Kristen Stewart content every Christmas. It's excellent. Yeah.
Anyway, so I just wanted to set the scene for this book that all of our listeners should be imagining like Princess Diana just like as a ghost in the background of the first 50% at least of this story.
Yeah. Or just like alive. Again, it's like an alternate timeline. It's like she definitely could just like be there. She could be the Duchess.
True.
The Duchess could be her.
No. So this book, Royal Holiday by Jasmine Guillory. Is that how you pronounce it?
I think Guillory, yeah.
Guillory. Stars Vivian, who is a Black social worker from California who goes to the UK with her daughter Maddie, because her daughter Maddie is like a personal stylist, and she's styling an unnamed duchess for the holidays. And there at the Sandringham estate, Vivian meets Malcolm, the hot middle-aged Black private secretary to the Queen. And Vivian is based off of Meghan Markle's mom. And that's not just me like pulling something out of her ass. She is explicitly, like the author confirmed, she is based off of Meghan Markle's mom, who is also a divorced single mother Black social worker from California.
So does that make Maddie Meghan Markle?
Yes, I guess. And then the Duchess seemed like the Duchess, at least in the audiobook, had a British accent, a horrible British accent, which we'll get to later. So I viewed her as like a mix of like Kate and Meghan. But yeah, I don't think Maddie is supposed to necessarily be Meghan, but Vivian is Doria Ragland, Meghan Markle's mom.
Nice. Yeah, so let's go back to the beginning. So Vivian, I think the one thing you didn't mention is that she's like 50 something, which is like unusual for a romance book. I feel like that's not something I really like
older
I don't think I've ever
heroine.
encountered that. Maybe that's just like my own, like what I've come across. Like I haven't made an effort either.
Older
But
heroines are like
um,
never get
so
stories.
her daughter Maddie is like, "Oh, mom, you haven't had a real vacation in years. Like, come with me on this work trip over Christmas that I'm going on." Which, like, does that really count as a vacation? It turns into a vacation, but like,
here's
it's
the
cool.
thing,
It's cool,
Rachel.
but it's not like a vacation.
Your
As in
daughter
the traditional
invites
sense.
you to spend Christmas with the royal family of Britain, and you're going to say no?
That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying, does this really, like, work-life balance people? Like, does this really count as – she hasn't really gone on any other trips in, like, years. Like,
Well, Vivian's not working.
that's true.
She's just, like, hanging out at the Sandringham estate. Maddie's working, but only up until Christmas, and then after that, they have, like, a girls' trip to London, so –
yeah, that's true. That wasn't clear at the beginning, but
counts.
It seems like Vivian is definitely a workaholic and also, like, just takes care of her whole family. She has, like – her sister Jo that had cancer, so that's like what she's been up to.
She's just generally, like, besides the fact that she's a workaholic, like a very, like, well-rounded, like, chill person. She just, like, seems very cool, and I like her. The benefit of having an older heroine is that you have someone whose, like, corpus callosum is fully developed.
Oh my god, you mean frontal lobe?
Yeah, whatever. Their brain's fully developed.
Yeah.
And so, like, they're not, like, running around doing whatever. Something I think this book does really well that I will mention throughout the recap, but I think is important to highlight before we really get started. The food in this book, there are so many descriptions of sumptuous meals and snacks, and just it's constantly, like, every other scene is something delicious, and that was lovely. And I frankly, like, I think that's like the most holiday part of this book is the fact that there's just endless food.
Yeah, for sure. But just in the background, I'm always remembering that this is like British food, and so I'm like, how good is it going to be really?
Okay.
But
to be fair though, the best food descriptions are the scones, which are objectively delicious, and then the non-British meals that they have. The, like, Israeli and I think, like, Ghanaian restaurant that they go to later. Neither of which are British.
Yeah, true.
And she makes fun of – we'll talk about this later, but she makes fun of Jasmine Guillory, my girl, makes fun of British food in this.
There was some nice sautéed mushrooms in, like, the breakfast scene.
Okay.
That sounded good. Okay, so
we can touch on this as they come.
Vivian
they putz off to Sandringham Estate, which is where the royal family goes for Christmas.
First of all, they get to ride first class on the airplane, which I want to do. It sounds just like
sick.
The beds recline all the way back. It sounds just like those overnight buses in Thailand, except like 1,000 times more expensive.
Yep.
Yeah, if you ever go to Thailand, you can travel on an overnight bus for like $15, and the seat goes all the way back, and it's great. The only downside is that when I was on it, they played like loud music videos for much of the night, but get yourself some earplugs.
They're like, we're not going to give you too good of a deal. Like, watch out.
Also, another thing going on in the background here that we find out before they leave is that her boss is retiring, and he's going to like recommend her to get promoted to his job. Right now, she like really likes being a social worker and like the client management part of it. And the new job would just be like a lot of meetings and stuff. And so that's like in the background here. So now,
they arrive at Sandringham, and Rachel and I both listened to the audiobook as we are wont to do.
Oh my god!
Because we no longer
I almost
have the
didn't finish this book
to read books
because of this.
This audiobook narrator. Let me start by saying I think she is very talented. I assume that she does the audiobooks.
No, she does. I've listened. All the other ones I've listened to. Yeah, she's great.
She does all of Jasmine Guillory's books, and it makes sense that she would do this one. It's like the fourth book in a series. But dear God, this woman can't do a British accent.
I don't understand. Like, I can understand wanting to work with the same audiobook reader and like not wanting to like, impair that relationship in any way. But I feel like it should not be that awkward to just be like, hey girl, I love you. Please do my future book set exclusively in the United States or with American English speaking characters. However, for this one book, I think we can both recognize this is just not in your wheelhouse. We're going to go in a different direction. Like, I don't understand why that would have been difficult to do.
Okay. In Mamma Mia, this is relevant, I promise. In Mamma Mia, Pierce Brosnan plays Sam. And the first time I saw Mamma Mia, when did it come out? Like 2008? Okay, so almost 15 years ago that I first saw Mamma Mia. And I did not realize until like 3 years ago when it was pointed out to me by my friends that Pierce Brosnan is supposed to be American in that movie. Because his accent is so atrocious. I just thought Pierce Brosnan like sounded a little weird, but was otherwise doing his like normal British accent. I did not realize that Sam is supposed to be American in that movie. This narrator's accent is like the reverse of that. It's like that, but for British accents. It's just, and I don't want to dunk on her too bad, but it's just, no, for once I'm encouraging people not to read the audiobook. Like, read this book, don't read the audiobook, because I think it'll really turn you off.
I mean, it's worse because, well, maybe it's just worse. It feels worse because we're Americans. Like with the Pierce Brosnan thing, like you said, like you didn't notice, it wasn't like grating to the ear to listen to. You just thought he like had some undefined like accent.
With this, I think maybe it was because I didn't know. I didn't know he was supposed to be doing an American accent. So I just assumed it was some undefined accent. Like this accent, I think I would have been much more okay with if I didn't know it was supposed to be a British accent.
And it's like half the characters. More than half the characters.
It's not even like one character who appears for like 2 scenes. It's the love interest.
That would be fine. I could get over that. The love interest. Everyone in the country where 90% of the book takes place.
Yeah. No. Anyway. Okay. So they arrive at a cottage on Sandringham Estate, because obviously they're super rich and there's not just going to be one house where the Duke and Duchess and unnamed Duke and Duchess are staying. And Vivian briefly feels like awkward about having servants there to serve her and like take her coat and like open doors for her and like do all this shit. But then she's like, fuck that. I'm gonna live like goddamn royalty for a week and I'm gonna make the most of it. This is gonna be fucking great. And I'm like, yeah, like I don't want you like just like bouncing around pretending to be awkward. Like you give those people your coat and like you let them make dinner for you. Like, but go.
Yeah, but she's not like mean about it. She's not like bossy and like taking advantage. Yeah, she's polite, but like assertive.
She's like still very polite and she comes by and she like, makes sure she's not being rude.
Another thing to note about this cottage, and the Duchess like says something about this, but there's fireplaces in all the bedrooms, which is like ideal.
Excellent.
And it reminds me of the show I saw a while ago where it was like some like ducal, like some like duke's land, and it was just like all about how hard the ducal keep was to heat. Like they had their own like peat like operation going on just to like have enough like heating.
Did we watch the same thing?
Maybe. I don't know.
We definitely watched the same thing. It's I think it's like a Scottish duke.
Yes, no, I think it was
Julie Montague. Okay, so tangent that is only slightly related. Julie Montague is the Countess of
something.
No, she's not the Countess. She's Viscountess Montague. And her husband is
Hinchinbrook.
Okay. Her husband is the heir to the earldom of Sandwich. Like her in-laws are the Earl and Countess of Sandwich. It's amazing. She's American. She's like this girl woman from Candace who like, it's like literally a fucking rom-com. Like she had no idea her husband was like a Viscount when they started dating and like saw it because it was like on his credit card and she was like a discount. And I was like, relatable, Julie. Anyway, she was on this short-lived reality television show called The Ladies of London. And now she does like a whole YouTube series. She's like fixing up the Earl of Sandwich's like estate and doing all this like stuff for it. And like she's posting videos on YouTube.
She also has her own yoga school. Just on the side.
And she's like fixing up the estate and she's doing all this stuff. And she also swims in their like natural pond on the estate in this freezing water. All of this is on YouTube. And she does this series for like, what is it? Like Smithsonian Channel or something?
Something like that.
Called like the American Duchess, the American like Viscountess's like tour of stately homes or whatever. And so one of the episodes was on this like Scottish ducal estate and they have their own like peat production to heat the home.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's
it's a real issue. Yeah.
All of those homes are beautiful, but all of them were built when there was no like indoor heating. So they're all freezing. And that's like a thing. Like it was like, speaking of Princess Diana, in the Princess Diana movie, they were constantly having like young Prince Harry and like Princess Diana be like, oh my God, it's so cold in here. This sucks.
Another thing is like apparently they have their own fireplaces, but not their own personal bathrooms because Vivian in one of the early scenes, she has to like check out in the hallway to make sure no one's there. So she's like walking back in her towel from the bathroom. So like, what? I guess I get it.
Well,
I
that
guess
makes
when it was
sense.
built, they probably didn't have
They had
any.
chamber pots.
Just had chamber pots, yeah. But
Yeah,
still, like,
that checks out. Beautiful houses. Yeah, I don't know whether I'd want to like live in one full time unless it had been like fully renovated. But then if it had been fully renovated, I would be sad because I would want it to be like cool and like historic.
I would have my
22
own little fully renovated like apartment and then just
wing
rent the rest out as like an Airbnb. I don't know.
Just like go hang out in the ballrooms like whenever it's warm and then like cuts on back to my central heating and air conditioning. Yeah, so Vivian is there. She goes down to the kitchen
to, quote, find whoever made those amazing sandwiches they'd had the night before, which again, this is the UK. Like, are the sandwiches really that amazing? I'm skeptical.
Well, they're made by the cook, Julie Pepper, which is such a cook name.
Excellent cook name.
It's such a fucking
I
cook
wrote that,
name.
yeah.
And she makes apparently the world's best fucking scones. And throughout reading this book was like, I just want some scones with clotted cream and strawberry jam. Like oh my God, I want them so badly. And you just can't find them in the United States. They all taste like shit. Like, and that sounds so elitist, but God, have I never been able to find a scone as good and clotted cream as good as the one I had at Chatsworth House, which is the site of Pemberley for 2005 Pride and Prejudice.
So 2 things. Yeah, I don't think I've actually ever had a real scone. Cameron's dad tried to make them like a few months ago, a while back, over COVID. And apparently they're like really finicky. Like they just like did not work. They were like dense bricks because they're like yeasty and like you have to like, I don't know. But like he was really frustrated because he'd apparently made them before and they like worked. 2,
you should have gotten Julia Pepper's recipe.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's a plot point. Okay. 2, I don't think clotted cream would actually be that hard to make. Like I think I could make it if you wanted because I think it's the same as kajmak is like Serbian salty clotted cream, but it's made with milk. You. Right. But I've looked up videos for that and it's super easy. Like I think especially with clotted cream too, you just like boil the cream and then skim off the like fat stuff from the top. Like that's what clotted cream is.
I don't want to know how you make it. That sounds
you probably
disgusting.
add sugar.
I don't want you to tell me that that's how you make it.
The thing for
here's
me,
the thing.
It seems wasteful.
Even in the UK, there's differentiations between clotted cream. So like the one I had at Chatsworth House was much better than the one I had at Limehouse, which is the filming location for Pemberley in 1995 Pride and Prejudice. Chatsworth House clotted cream is superior to Limehouse clotted cream.
I just don't think it'd be that hard to make. Maybe it's like the cows. Maybe it's all to like what cows it comes from or something.
Probably.
But
I'm sure.
I don't know what point you add. It's sweet, right? So I don't know what point you would add the sugar. But anyway, I don't know. It seems wasteful because you're left with like a bunch of liquid, like the rest of the cream that doesn't like rise to the top. So I don't know what you're supposed to do with that. Slurp it up. Put it in your cereal, in your porridge.
Yum, yum, yum.
Oh, cereal. Okay. So she goes down. She goes down. Sorry. It's Friday. All right.
Okay.
So she goes down in the kitchen. And who's in the corner? It's the man. And I was like so ready for him to be royalty.
No.
Unfortunately, he is not royalty. So
he's still pretty cool though. If I've learned anything from The Crown, he has a lot of power.
He is private secretary to the Queen. He's also 50-something. He's also Black. He is British, obviously. Because that would probably be some kind
not
of
according to the audiobook narrator.
Oh my God.
So he's the private secretary for the Queen. His name is Malcolm. I don't think we mentioned that.
So they meet, okay, and somehow, like, through some machinations of the cook, Julia Pepper, she's like, oh, why don't you take Vivian on a tour of the estate? And I just find it really hard to believe that the Queen's personal secretary would have, like, free time like this. Like, he just seems to have immense amounts of free time at all times throughout this book. Which,
it's the holidays.
Good for him. Yeah, I guess. But, like, I don't know. I feel like the holidays would be still really busy for the Queen and therefore busy for him.
Well, there's something throughout this whole time, every time we're in his head, he's constantly thinking like, oh, Parliament isn't behaving. Like there's something going on with Parliament. They need to make a decision. And I'm like, Jasmine, don't be coy. It's Brexit, isn't it? Because I looked up when this book was published and it was late 2019. And guess when Brexit happened? January 2020. So what is getting decided during this book? the final agreement of Brexit. And I was like, call it out, Jasmine. Like, I want Brexit to be in this book.
No, I mean, I just remember that, but I remember throughout, I was like, oh, what is this big thing going to be? It's definitely going to become relevant later in the book. And then no, we just never find out. It never even becomes like relevant, right? It never becomes like at all plot relevant. And it's just like, what? This is like.
Well, I think it's just in there to show why he has free time, because he's like, we're in a holding pattern. There's nothing for me to do because
I guess so. Okay.
Parliament is like in a standstill.
I guess. I just like,
yeah.
It's like Chekhov's gun, but like not. Like it was violating that rule. Chekhov's
bill. I don't know.
Yeah.
Whatever.
It was not Chekhov's gun. So they go on a tour of the estate and he's like questioning her like, oh, have you ever like been here before? And she's like, no, I've only ever been out of the country at one time in Mexico. She also tells him she's a social worker and he thinks like, oh, that was probably why it was so easy to talk to her. And I'm just like, that's not why. It's because
you're in love.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of like there's very much like insta attraction between them. And Vivian is like not afraid to just like say what's on her mind during this part. And I was just kind of thinking like, can I just fast forward 30 years until I have like the self-confidence of Vivian? Because like, damn, like she's got it. She's got
Vivian
herself together.
Is like, oh, I don't want to be too direct with him. And then she's like, wait a second. I'm only here for like 5 days. I'm on like Christmas vacation at a royal estate. Like, why shouldn't I be direct? You know? And then she is. Yeah.
Yeah, she constantly has those thoughts. She's like, why the fuck not? Like, I'm living my hot girl winter. And I'm like, yeah, Vivian, woohoo.
She's also like constantly talking about how cold it is there. And I like always thought that San Francisco, or I think she's from Oakland, was like pretty cold. Like I always thought of the winters at least as like pretty similar to UK winters. But apparently that's not the case. Also, she also is constantly talking about how early the sun sets. And I was like, oh, like, come on. It's probably, I bet you like where I am is just as bad because it's on the fucking eastern edge of a time zone, which is not where you want to be in daylight savings times or whatever. But no, it turns out the shortest day of the year in London, the sun sets at 3:58. Are you out of your mind?
It's so much farther north, Rachel. It's so much farther north than the United States.
Well, I guess
like it's where Maine. It's like Maine is like the tip of Maine.
I guess I forget that
like
because it's not as cold as the parallel place in the U.S. because of that whole like East Coast, East-West ocean thing. That they don't
much
fully
more
understand.
mild. It's much more like the same. Like the temperature range is like 20 degrees, whereas in Maine it's like 40 degrees, like average.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's very cold at Sandringham, which is, I don't know where that is. I think it's somewhere north of London, but like still in England. They're bopping around.
He's also like, oh, working for the Queen meant many things, but good pay wasn't one of them. Which like, once again, I'm like, what is the point then? Like, again, charge the aristocracy. Like if you are not bilking this institution for as much as you're worth, like.
Well, here's the thing. You're not charging the aristocracy. You're charging the British taxpayer.
No, I thought they didn't get taxpayer money anymore.
They do for their staff.
Are you kidding?
No.
Well, they shouldn't. And
they absolutely
have to pay
do get taxpayer
through the nose.
For their staff, like for their security people, that's all British taxpayer money.
Jeez. What the fuck? What is up with why does this still exist?
Yeah. Well, multiple times in this book, Vivian is like, wow, I feel like so un-American, like being in the British royal family. And Malcolm is like, yeah, I mean, you kind of get used to it, but like, it is kind of dumb, TBH.
The details of the payments are private? What?
Oh, yeah. Well, it's like how Prince Philip's will has been like sealed for 100 years.
What?
Prince Philip's will. We can't find out what's in it. It's been sealed for 100 years.
I thought wills were like always public.
No, it's specially ordered to be sealed for 100 years.
Yeah, they're like public record in the US at least. That's crazy.
Well, it was like court ordered.
That's like the one will that should definitely be public record.
Well, because they were like, we want to save people embarrassment. And I'm like, what is in there?
What?
Like, how many mistresses did Philip leave? Well, like it wasn't explicitly like we want to save people embarrassment, but like that was the implication of like, oh, we want to keep things private, whatever. All right. We learn that Malcolm has a nephew named Miles who's going to Oxford, maybe. winky face, building the tension. Will Miles go to Oxford? And then
we find out that Vivian has never been on a horse. And she's like, yeah, the closest I've gotten is like those carriage horses in New York City. And he's like, we can't have that. And I thought he was about to start railing against like horses in carriage use on pavement. But but no, he's just
he should.
Yeah.
Those horses are abused. Those carriage rides should not be allowed.
Exactly.
It's fucked up.
Yeah, but instead he's just like, oh no, we just got to get you on the back of a horse. It's not enough that you've only like been dragged by one.
What?
Yeah.
No, she hasn't even ridden in the carriages. She just saw them.
Oh, maybe. Yeah.
That's the anyway. Yeah, they're gonna go horseback riding the next day.
And in between, she like talks to what's her face, Maddie, and we have this like little thing where she's like, yeah, when Maddie was growing up, like I always tried to like keep my dating like totally separate and like not, like involve her in that, which like good parent-child boundaries. Now that Maddie's 34, it's probably not as necessary, Viv, but I see where you're coming from. They also have potato soup.
Yes, I wrote that down too.
Yeah. And she's like,
it sounds delicious.
Yeah, it sounds delicious. I frankly can't imagine a bad potato soup. She's like, oh, every other potato soup I've had before is like so like stodgy and flavorless. And I'm like, what? Like I feel potato soup really is one of those things where if you just like cook up some potatoes and just even put in like a pinch of salt, it actually would be really good, I feel like.
Yeah.
No matter how you cook it. Like it's potatoes, it's liquid, it's salty, it's creamy, it's delicious. You can't go wrong.
Julia probably put some spices in it that really bring out the flavor.
Just because I don't think there can be bad potato soup, there can definitely be like exceptional potato soup. I also buy into that.
I mean, her name is Julia Pepper. Like if you think she doesn't use spices, you got another thing coming. It's in her name.
So
anyway, they start sending cute little notes back and forth using the butler service because Malcolm is like, this thing is a relic from the Victorian era and like we might as well make use of it. Like they're here. But he writes it on his personal stationery, but he specifically is like Malcolm wrote out the final draft on his personal stationery. And I'm like, how many drafts did this man write? Like, why wasn't I treated to a montage of him like crumpling up notes and being like, not good enough, and like tossing it into the waste paper?
So they go there next morning.
He picks her up for horseback riding.
He's like, the queen's horses are monarchists. Like, I can't remember how that's relevant, but it was just like, LOL.
No, she's like, what if they bite me? Or like, what if they don't like her or whatever? She's like scared of the horses.
Yeah.
Which, like, understandable. Horses are terrifying. They're much larger in person than like you would ever think they are in like on screen. And he says the queen's horses are monarchists. They would never disrespect a royal guest. And I'm like, yeah, I believe it.
Fair enough.
Like fair enough. And the stables are called the Royal Stud. And frankly, if someone hasn't used that for the title of a romance, of like a royalty romance,
a shifter romance, perchance,
about
royalty shifter,
a prince who turns into a horse, a centaur, a prince centaur romance. If someone hasn't used that already, they should. Full raid, use Royal Stud for your centaur, shifter, and in any way royalty and horse themed romance, please. Maybe listen, Princess Anne is an equestrian, so it could be like
they're
both competing at the Olympics. No, but she was in the Olympics.
Oh damn.
Princess Anne was in the Olympics. So I'm saying like maybe it's like a princess who goes to the Olympics and then like meets another equestrian at the Olympics and they fall in love.
And
like,
the secret
if you don't want to go the like paranormal route.
The secret is
that he's the horse he's riding. Yeah. And it's actually just like a mannequin.
That's why he's so good. He turns into like a human horse like thing.
I feel like I should be writing these down for like my Kindle Unlimited debut.
Please.
Anyway,
this is also around the time when he's like, I'm not planning on spending the rest of my working life working for the royal family. And that's when I was like, okay, an opening for him to move to Oakland. Yeah, I was disappointed by this also because I really expected there to be some like, I was like, oh man, no like runaway horse / like horse rescue scene, like cowboy type shit where the horse like bolts and he has to like run up on another horse and like jump or whatever. while wearing a cowboy hat that comes out of nowhere.
It just falls from like a tree.
Yeah.
Earlier, and it just falls down. He teaches her. She is a natural at riding horses, and he teaches her how to trot. And this book makes trotting seem much easier than it is.
Because it's easy if you have great posture like Vivian, I guess.
No, because it's like you have to rock your body with the horse. And listen, I went horseback riding in the Scottish Highlands so I could live my like Scottish Highlander dreams. And the person I was with, we told them that like we knew how to ride horses, which I do. Like I've ridden horses before. I like know the difference between like whatever. And then the person was like, "Are you familiar with trotting?" And the person I was with was like, "Yeah, sure." And I was like, "It can't be that hard." And then we started trotting, and my horse was like the following horse, so it would do whatever the other horses did. It like would not listen to me, and so it would just trot. And then at one point it started galloping, and I was like, "I'm gonna die." I was like, "Today is the day that I die," like in the Scottish Highlands. So anyway, trotting is really fucking hard. It's not easy. It's not just follow the rhythm of the horse, like. No, this is not a rocking horse. Okay, this is not like something easy.
Maybe if you had better posture, that's all I'm saying.
So then they're walking back, and they just randomly meet the queen.
The queen's like, "You have a great seat, great horseback riding." It's like very bold on the part.
And she's like, "And I saw a little old lady with a handbag, and I realized that it was the queen." And I'm like, "What?" I was not I did not expect to meet like any named members of the royal family besides like the Duchess, like as a side character. I was like, surprise queen appearance.
Yeah, I was not, because that's not the norm for this type of shit, I feel like.
No.
But however, Vivian made a good impression on the queen. She curtsies. She's like drops into a
immediately feels like she's like betrayed her patriotic oath.
Yeah. She's like, I hope the fucking, who's that, like Joseph, what's his face, the red scare guy. She's like, I hope he's not watching.
Joseph McCarthy.
Yeah, Joseph McCarthy. Oh. Looking around for him. So they're like chatting about like what their plans are for Christmas, and Vivian is like, oh, I'm excited to eat different like food. I'm excited to do something different besides like eat the same food and watch the same sports I've been watching all my life. And to that, I have like two questions. One, do people really watch sports on Christmas? Like, are there sports on Christmas? I know a lot of people do on Thanksgiving because there's some like big football game, but like who is forcing professional sports athlete people in the US to like play on Thanksgiving? Unless her family watches some like sport from a country that doesn't celebrate Christmas, like what? Anyway,
well, if they make people do it on Thanksgiving, why wouldn't they make them do it on Christmas too? If like Christmas happens to fall on a Monday or a Sunday for like Monday and Sunday Night Football. I don't know shit about the football schedule. I just know that like sometimes on the radio I hear the Eagles on Sunday Night Football. That's all I know.
So back to the book, my second comment on her, like, I'm excited to eat different food. Are you really looking forward to eating the British food? Especially, and she's like, I read all about it. Like, I want to try everything I read about. And I'm like, you read all about it and you still want to eat it? Because that's where I'm at. And I'm like, I'm not that enthusiastic about it. And the next day at breakfast, she's like, as she sat and ate the ham for breakfast that British people apparently called bacon.
Yeah. It was vindicated. I was like, we're just talking about this. In our, what was it, Ladies Guide to Celestial Mechanics episode about how British people bacon is disgusting. And I felt vindicated by this book because now I have an internationally best-selling author also confirming that British bacon is shit. It's horrible. It's floppy and terrible. And we get further dunking on British food at their lunch date. She's going down the menu and she's like, mashed peas? Like, what the fuck is that? Spotted dick? Like, what the fuck is that? And his only comment. So this is, I think, just like undeniable proof. Yeah, I felt really attacked by this. That British food is horrible because this is the best comeback that Malcolm had. And Vivian betrayed me a little bit because she agreed with him.
Exactly.
He was like, well, how did marshmallows end up on sweet potatoes? Like, what's that all about? And I was like, what is this sweet potato casserole slander?
God, it's like the most delicious.
What? Like, have you never eaten it? Like this from the country whose idea of dessert is butter on bread with fucking sprinkles on top? Like, you're gonna dunk on sweet potato casserole? And then Vivian is like, yeah, I don't like that either. And
she's
I'm like,
my family doesn't have that.
I'm like, Vivian, you're wrong as well. You're missing.
God. Although I do these days prefer a crispy crust to a marshmallow, but that's mostly because marshmallows aren't vegetarian. Like I have no, like honestly, the best is crispy crust with marshmallows on top. Like that, like double decker. Oh my God. It's just like, how can you complain about a dessert food that's managed to worm its way into like the main dish? Like that can only be a positive. Are you out of your mind?
Right. Like, yeah, no, I was like, that's the best you can do, Malcolm. Like in the wake of something called spotted fucking dick, your best comeback is sweet potato casserole. I don't think so. I'm
gonna be honest though, mushy peas sound pretty good to me. Like I would destroy some mushy peas.
It's literally just mashed peas. It's like mashed potatoes, but peas.
Yeah, well, you're saying all the things. All the things you're saying sound good.
One of the best things about peas is the little like pop when you eat them. That's what I like about peas.
I like some mushy peas. The way that Bobby likes them when they're like soft.
Mm. Yeah, I prefer when there's a little pop.
No. Anyway, yeah. I just can't believe I can't believe Vivian does this. This is what should really get her like inquisitioned by Joseph McCarthy. For anti-Americanism.
Somebody call up the FBI. Yeah. Right.
He also, Malcolm at this point orders a chicken pie and she's like, chicken pot pie? And he's like, ha ha ha, no. When I Google chicken pie British, like things that look very much like chicken pot pie is all that comes up. So I'm not really sure what that is. Chicken pot pie, delicious. That's fine with me personally. And that seems like a very British thing. It seems like, it's like a shepherd's pie. What is chicken pie?
I feel like a quintessential British food is like pasty stuffed with meat.
Pastry. Yeah, it's delicious.
Pastry stuffed with
or
like
stuffed
meat
with
and
anything.
Vegetables.
But it looks like
a
pot pie.
Like meat and vegetables is very like.
Is a chicken pie basically a pot pie that's like less deep, that's like shaped more like a traditional pie? Is that what it is?
I have no idea.
She's the expert on this.
I avoided British food at all fucking costs when I was in the UK, Rachel. I ate it sometimes and it was disgusting and flavorless. And so I subsisted off of Domino's and Krispy Kreme and the one good taco place down the street.
If you liked Indian food, like...
They had a lot of good Indian restaurants. I don't like Indian food, but my roommates did, and there was a lot of good restaurants there. But again, not British. It's not British food. It's Indian food.
Oh, no,
it's a different culture.
Questioning your choices to not eat it. So she's like, oh, I don't really like sharing food. When Malcolm's like, oh, she doesn't say it. She thinks it. And I'm just like, me too, girl. Me too. Like I'm like a total hypocrite because I like sharing other people's food. Like I like trying other people's food, but I don't like sharing my own food. I'm like a poorly socialized dog in that way.
Is sharing food a thing? What?
The dog thing, like, haven't you ever seen those videos of like, it's like really sad, but like I saw a video one time and it was like, oh, like how a shelter will like know if a dog's like adoptable or not. And then like they have the dog eating and then they have like a fake plastic hand that like tries to like take the dog's food. And if the dog like bites and attacks the hand, like that's like, that dog, the window is closed for like socialization or training. But I feel like that same kind of dog would like steal another dog's food. So that's me. I won't beat you, but usually
so
non-linear thing that I wanted to touch on that he mentions like at some point before this is like he's like talking about why he stays at a hotel in town whenever he's working at Sandringham. And she's like, oh, why don't you stay like at Sandringham? And he's like, oh, well, one time I did like at the main house and it was fucking terrible because it was so fucking cold and I had to sleep in the servants' quarters, which like if there's anything that like 18th century aristocrats did not give two shits about, it was the comfort of their servants. So it's like the whistling winds are like full on in there. And then he's like, yeah, and because like there's so much of the family that comes for Christmas to Sandringham, they have like some of the family sleep in the old servants' quarters too, which like blew my mind. Like, I feel like just being a royal, the more I learn about it, it just sounds like worse and worse. It's like this poor Duchess has to like worry about what she's wearing to like family Christmas dinner to the point where she has like an overseas stylist come over. She has to sleep in this drafty ass servants' quarters over Christmas and get like
the Duchess. They get their own house. The Duke and Duchess get their own house.
But like in general, like other people, someone has to. Someone who's probably
They're
under
like
the same
cousins.
constraints to look good. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's great. I think it's hilarious. You know, being a royal generally feels like it would suck ass.
Yep. Except for that nice tax money, like good tax
well, you
income.
only get that if you're a working royal.
Yeah. But still.
And Prince Charles is ready to chop, like cut every extraneous person off.
Oh, really?
When he becomes king, he like really wants to downsize the number of people who like are getting tax money, which
that
like
means more money.
You know
for
what,
him.
Charles? Like I applaud you, Charles. Like good for you.
I mean,
you should
here's the thing: is it gonna decrease the overall amount of tax money, or is it just gonna be more money for him? That's the question.
I don't know how it works. I just know that's his thing, is that he wants to like downsize it to like immediate relative, like heirs.
It just sounds like the kind of thing
relatives.
that he would do as like a bid for popularity, but would actually only benefit him.
No, he's been gunning for this for like 40 years, like since he was young.
Yeah,
like,
gunning. He's like, oh, why do we have to? He like saw the family pie chart at one point, and he's like, Mama, why is our share only 55% instead of 100? He's also a poorly socialized dog in that respect. He also doesn't like sharing his pie.
Okay. So they finish up lunch, and they're driving home, and I love this part where he pulls over by the side of the road, and he's like, "I'm sorry, like I literally can't sit next to you right now without kissing you." And then they just make out in the car on the side of the road.
I definitely would have thought, because Jasmine Guillory specifically like, oh, we like pulled over into like where we couldn't be seen in like a copse of trees, like a secluded, like the middle of nowhere road behind some middle of nowhere trees. That was me. I'd be like, oh, he's definitely about to like serial killer me right now. Like this is that was my first thought, at least. But it doesn't happen. Yeah. Luckily for Viv and the rest of this book. Yeah.
Instead, they have a really quick where he's like just a sec, gotta kiss you real quick.
Yep.
And then they head off home.
And she does invite him to Christmas dinner at some point, like
to Christmas Eve. She invites him over to Christmas Eve dinner, and he is like, well, I'd planned to go back to London before this, but like now I just really want to spend Christmas Eve with this lady. So I guess I'm not going home until Christmas to see my actual family. And then he invites her to hang out with him out in London after the holidays, because she and Maddie are going to London to have like a few girls' days, and he's like, extend your trip and like hang out with me, and like I'll pull out the stops. And she, for some reason, is hesitant. I was like, Vivian, up until this point, you have been living your hot girl winter. Every decision you have made has been like, why the fuck not? I'm only gonna be here for like a week. And now with the private secretary to the queen, who like absolutely has like immense power to like do a bunch of cool shit with you in London, is offering to take you on like a multi-day romantic getaway, you're hesitating?
Here's the thing though, like I feel like from the perspective, again, I have like never had a traditional like full-time 9-to-5 job, but I just like know if I only had like, 2 weeks off a year, like 10 days, I don't think I could spend the entire time like doing things and like traveling. Like I feel like I would need like 10 days to like decompress at home from like having to go to work every fucking day, and then like maybe do another trip. But there's not enough days for that. So like I mean, that's not her thought process, but like for me, if I don't know, if I was traveling over the holidays, especially, I didn't even get to relax then, I feel like I'd want a few days at home. But it's a rom-com Christmas book. It's fine. I'm not, So while she's thinking about it, she has this little like reverse Parent Trap dress try-on scene with like her daughter Maddie and the Duchess. So Maddie's like, oh mom, like we really need a tiebreaker to like decide what the Duchess is gonna wear. And so they have the like, hey, up, hey, never let you go. It's just like, let you go. Hey, yeah. Okay, except instead of the mom being the one who's a stylist, it's the daughter. And instead of like the little 10-year-old girl being the one who's like helping out the rich lady, it's 55-year-old Vivian, but it's still great.
Sure, yeah. So she chooses the Duchess's dress for Christmas Eve dinner.
And then it's time for Christmas Eve dinner. So Julia Pepper's pulled out all the stops. She's like, oh, I'm like going to experiment on you guys with all the stuff that like my own family won't let me make. Which like, why isn't she with her own family? I'm just confused on this, but I guess like the royal family needs someone to wait on them hand and foot at all times, even Christmas Eve. So the big thing that stuck out to me with regards to the food is like there were cheese straws in vases on the table. What the fuck? What is that? If it's not mozzarella sticks, like what the fuck is that?
Okay, here's the thing. First of all, they were in vases. So I was like, okay, so they're not cheese sticks because there's something that can be non-refrigerated and also presumably like hard. Like I'm imagining like those long pretzel sticks like things, but cheese. So my idea, they're called cheese straws, are like something the texture and flavor of a Cheeto, but like in straw form, which
what do you drink with it?
How do I get access to that?
What do you want to drink with it though?
How do I get access?
Are you
like, I don't know, a Fireball? Like whiskey or something? Like, especially if it's like a flaming hot Cheeto and you have like some like cinnamon Fireball.
You want to sip Fireball through a straw?
No, I'm just saying. I'm just spitballing here. I'm just spitballing. But anyway, the way that this is just casually thrown in to the story makes me think that this is some sort of like common, like this is a thing that Jasmine Guillory is assuming we know about. And please
Google it. It looks like what you're describing.
At we read it one night at gmail.com. Please email us the link to purchase these somewhere in the United States,
recipe.
Please.
A good recipe.
Sure, yes. Either way, if you know what the fuck a cheese straw is, I would love to know, and I would love to be told how to purchase it and or make it. And if you do this before, well, this episode isn't going out until right before Christmas, but if you are quick about it, we will make them and post a picture of them in vases over the holidays.
Oh my god. Oh, I have something you can I have something for you that you can put them in. It's a surprise.
A vase?
Something.
I have that.
It references another one of our episodes, so it would be like a meeting of two worlds. But
a lizard vase? Is it a lizard vase?
No comment.
It's a lizard vase.
No comment. You're wrong.
Anyway, Malcolm pulls up and he is like, I moved your whole schedule and I extended your hotel and I also changed your flight. It's still first class and I did all this stuff for you. And on one hand, I'm like, it's fucking sick. Like, I would love for someone to just like do that and just like not tell me and just like hand me the tickets and be like, you're good to go. But on the other hand, I understand why Vivian is upset because she hasn't technically said yes.
He's like, oh, you said it could be fun. And so I took that as like absolute confirmation and you being like, yes, definitely. I don't need any time to think about this. It's like, yeah, it's kind of weird. But he apologizes almost immediately. He's like, I'm sorry. Like I shouldn't have assumed. I can change it back. And she's like, and Maddie intervenes. Maddie is like, Mom, what the fuck? Like you were saying before, Alison, like, this is like your fairy tale dreams, like once in a lifetime, you're definitely staying. And so she stays.
Yeah, she gets bullied into doing it by her daughter, which good for you. Good, great. Then we get an excellent description of food. I cannot remember a single description because I think I was just too hung up on the cheese straws at this point. But I do remember just feeling very warm and cozy at these food descriptions. So just in the rest of this meal, they go and kiss under the mistletoe. But the way that they go there is they're moving into the next room. And he's like, oh, your earring's gone. I don't really understand how this happens. He's like, your earring is gone. And like, I have it. And then he puts it back in for her. And I just went, ugh. Like I got such heebie-jeebies.
You don't have your ears pierced.
Yes, Rachel, I've had my ears pierced twice.
Yeah, but they're not currently pierced.
Well, they're half pierced. They have like half holes that are half healed. Anyway, I have had my ears pierced. The idea of someone putting the earring in my ear is just so like bad shivers, bad vibes all around. I don't like that at all.
Not gross me out at all. But I am amazed that like a man who does not have pierced ears would be able to do it. Actually, it's kind of hard to do it on anyone else because I feel like maybe this is unique to me because I had mine done when I was like 4 and it was 2 different people at the piercing pagoda piercing them at random spots on my ear at the same time. So they're like kind of wonky. They're like crooked. They like go in at a weird angle. So it's like if you're not familiar with the particular ear hole angles of like my ear, I'm going to be very impressed if you can do it on the first try.
Yeah. for future reference, if anyone doesn't have their ears pierced and is listening and would like to get their ears pierced, don't go to the piercing pagoda or anywhere that like uses a gun. Go to like a tattoo and piercing parlor. Don't. Guns are bad. I mean, it's like fine, but like
for the
it's
fleshy
not
part,
like,
it's fine.
No, you should be getting it done with a needle. Like with a straight, you should go to like a piercing place, like a tattoo and piercing place, and have someone like not just like someone who's getting paid minimum wage at Claire's or Piercing Pagoda. Like if they're using a gun, run away. It's also like almost impossible to properly sterilize those things. The guns. Yes.
My favorite is when you haven't had them in for a while, and then you put in earrings, and when you take them out, all the crusty stuff comes out the next day. It's my favorite.
Well, have you ever popped your ear holes?
Oh, yeah.
All the time. It's great.
Yeah. When I was in like 6th grade, our music teacher like re-pierced his ears with a safety pin in class.
That's a lot. That's a lot. Anyway, next day is Christmas. Maddie is very nervous because there is that traditional Christmas walk, much photographed Christmas walk from church by the royal family. And so she's like, this is my pièce de résistance. And it goes really well.
But all Vivian has to worry about is the Christmas breakfast, sauteed mushrooms, crispy potatoes, toast, probably some meat shit too, but just like, there's nothing better than a good sauteed mushroom, good crispy potatoes, good toast, just like hit me up. It doesn't have to be breakfast, any time of day.
Julia really pulls out all the stops. And then before they leave, Julia gives her the scone recipe, which is wonderful.
Yeah.
And I would like Jasmine Guillory, don't be shy. Provide it. Give me the scone recipe, please. I'll sign up for your newsletter, even if you promise that I will get a PDF of the scone recipe in return.
Yep. Meanwhile, Malcolm is off to spend Christmas Day with his sister and his nephew, Miles, who he has been like a surrogate father for because Miles' dad died when he was really little. So he shows up and Miles is like, hey, Uncle Malcolm, Uncle Mal, like, we saved you a bun. And then we find out these are like buns that his sister Sarah has been making since like their childhood. Malcolm like loves them. And I'm like, all right, like you get these once a year and they saved you like one in the bread box. They didn't even like, I don't know. That just struck me, rubbed me the wrong way.
Miles is a kid. I mean, Miles is 19.
Yeah, I guess.
Anyway, we find out.
This whole time Miles has been like, I have some big news to share. And for some reason, Malcolm like assumes that this is going to be that he's going to move in with his girlfriend, even though Miles has like just graduated high school. But like whatever, it's not that.
I mean, he's going off to college. It's not that.
He's doing a gap year.
He's decided that I am going. He's like, I am going to pursue painting because Miles is an artiste. He's like, I'm going to pursue painting. I'm going to go to art school, and I'm not going to go to Oxford. And Malcolm, understandably, is like, what the fuck? No, you're not. You are going to Oxford. Don't be a fucking dumbass. And Miles, understandably, is like, fuck you and the car you rode in on, and runs away. And then they're both very upset.
Yeah. And Miles is like, like, you know, I don't want to waste any moment of life. Like my dad died young, so I don't want to like, put it off till later, which I get. But also Miles, my dude, like, am I wrong in saying that like no art school will set you up for artistic success as much as, regardless of what level of talent you have, as much as knowing a bunch of rich people from Oxford?
That's true. That's
like,
true.
Come on. Why is that never mentioned?
That's true. I don't know. I don't know how the British, no, because social class is huge in Britain.
Who's buying the art?
You need to get a bunch of patrons. Yeah. Yes. Anyway, this argument puts Malcolm in the wrong headspace for his his romantic long weekend with Vivian. So he sends her a very curt text and picks her up at his hotel. And he's both like, oh, I really hope that she brings her suitcase down so that she's like takes up my invitation to stay with me. And then in her perspective, she's like, yeah, I packed my suitcase, but then I was like too nervous to bring it down. So I left the room. So I don't know whether to stay with him. And I'm like, just talk to each other.
Because he was originally like, oh, I extended your hotel stay, but like, of course, you can stay with me with my apartment. I didn't want to presume. And then later she's like, I wish he just did presume. Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
Like, God damn it. Like, why can't... Yeah. So she comes downstairs and he is like, how do you feel about surprises? And she's like, I fucking hate surprises. They suck. They're always like for the person doing the surprising and never for the person who is being surprised. I don't like them. They feel like a performance. And I'm like, I agree wholeheartedly, Vivian. I too hate surprises. I don't like this is why like my birthday was on Sunday and like I don't like birthday parties. I don't like doing big things for my birthday. I feel like it's like such like I have to like put on a performance and like I have to like be social and I'm like that sounds like the worst way to spend my birthday, frankly. Like so very on board, similar feelings.
But throughout the rest of the book, we like it's her process of realizing that the reason she feels this way is because her ex-husband, who she's been divorced for like 30 years, but like Maddie's dad, her ex-husband, used to like multiple occasions he like threw her surprise parties even though she said she didn't like them, and then he would get like offended if she didn't react the right way, and like she had to constantly like monitor. And she was like, yeah. And then it's her process of realizing, it's like once again kind of like Ladies Guide to Celestial Mechanics, it's like the process of realizing that certain traits, just because they're associated with a person who was otherwise bad for you, doesn't mean that they're inherently bad.
Yeah. But because they're both awkward, they're both feeling weird, Malcolm's in a bad mood. They have a very awkward first day of sightseeing.
She also asks, she's like, what was Miles's big news? And he like makes something like trite up. He like lies about it.
Yeah. No, he was just like something to do with painting. Like he doesn't. So they just have an awkward first day until they get to an Ethiopian restaurant, or is it a Ghanaian restaurant?
It's Ghanaian, I think.
It's Ghanaian. Yeah,
it's not Ethiopian because
at one point, okay, so they get there and there's this like obnoxious, like stereotypical privileged rich guy who's like trying to barge in front of them and like being rude to the wait staff, and he's like, "Oh, do you have this?" And the waiter is like, "No, that's Ethiopian. It's not
injera. It's like the spongy bread."
Yeah, and that guy, because he orders. So he's like, I love spicy food. Give me the spiciest thing on the menu and then triple the spiciness. I love it. Because he's trying to impress his date. And then he gets his food and he's just eating it throughout the night. And they're just like watching him like sweating and like chugging water and trying to pretend like he's not like about to explode from how spicy this thing is. And that helps ease the tension between them.
Yeah. Yeah. They're like just like roasting this guy next, like at the table next to them. And yeah, I've like been there though. Not like this obnoxious guy asking for the spiciest thing, but I've definitely like gotten myself into too hot water with like eating something.
See, this is why like you be like me and you just don't eat spicy food at all.
If you're missing out on so many flavors.
No, one of the reasons I don't like spicy food is because I can't taste anything besides the spice. The rest of the flavor disappears. So I feel like it makes it work. Like, anyway. I produce way too much mucus for spicy food, Rachel. I just like, I can't, like, I can't.
I have two asides here. So I don't know. It's like somewhere around here, like throughout the book, they're like talking, she like, do you know what a hot toddy is? Is that like a common thing that I just don't know about? Okay. Yes. I thought it was some like British thing, but she knows what it is. Okay.
It's a British drink.
Two, Ari, him like regarding him constantly like thinking about this like hold up in the government, which is like, I guess is why he has so much free time.
Brexit.
Why? Okay, so the House of Lords is still hereditary, right? And they still have like real power. Why does that still exist? But the king and queen/queen don't have any power anymore.
The House of Lords, I mean, they have power, but it's really not.
Isn't it like the Senate and the House of Representatives? It's like two houses.
Yeah, but it's
they
not
both
as
have to
like,
pass it.
It's not as but it's not like, I don't know, like the House of Commons significantly more like powerful than Lords. And I think the House of Lords is actually it's inherited, but it's also elected. Like it's not. So what it used to be was that everyone who
like
had a title everyone who had a title automatically inherited a seat. And then in like the 90s, very recently, they like severely cut down on that. And they were like, you don't automatically get a seat. You're like selected for the Lords.
Sure, but they still have some power, right? So like, but why doesn't the like actual monarchy have any power anymore then?
I mean, they do kind of in like certain respects. I don't know.
Do they? They don't have any explicit power anymore, I thought. Whatever.
I know, Rachel. It's like the Magna Carta all over again. Like
okay, so after dinner, the tension has been broken by the asshole at the next table. And they get back to his apartment, or they get back to her hotel room. And he's like, oh, do you want to go back to my apartment? And she's like, we're not leaving this hotel room for the rest of the night.
Yeah. But the staying at his apartment for this trip is finally comes to a head because they walk into her room and he sees her packed suitcase and he's like, what is that? And she's like, what is what? And he's like, your packed suitcase.
Sitting in the front
She's
entrance.
Like, and then he's like, do you want to go back to my apartment now? And she's like, absolutely not.
Yeah.
And then the nice fancy hotel has provided 2 condoms in their bathroom pack.
In their personal care pack, which she's like, oh, I expect it to be in there. She's like, they gave us one, we never opened it, but I expect there to be condoms in there. Would an American hotel ever have condoms in a personal care packet? I just feel like that's one thing that, I don't know, America would be much more prudish about.
They're staying at a very fancy hotel.
Yeah, which is exactly the kind of hotel I wouldn't expect to have that in America.
I don't know.
But yeah, also, she's also like, oh, we were just supposed to have a regular room, but for some reason we got upgraded to a suite. So now we have this cool sitting room and also a bedroom. You wouldn't happen to know anything about that, would you? And he's like, oh, it's probably just because they know that Americans are used to bigger hotel rooms. And so they didn't want you to feel crowded. So they just knew you were Americans. They just automatically upgraded you, didn't charge you anything extra. Yeah.
You little shit. Yeah. So then they have a lot of hot sex.
We will say another one of those scenes that's how did she get my clothes off that fast? Where one of the characters is just how did that? What witchery is this?
Yeah. So the next day, they have a much better day of sightseeing. They get a private tour of Buckingham Palace. And then he does a surprise because she was like, the one thing that I told Maddie I really wanted to see when we were here is a tiara. But I know that they don't come out that often. And he takes her to the Victoria and Albert Museum to see the Tiara Collection, which, by the way, having been there, is incredible. And to be able to see that when the museum is closed, amazing. And as she's walking through the museum, she's like, I have to keep my hands behind my back because I keep wanting to reach out and touch things. And I'm like, me too, Vivian. Especially at night when there's much less witnesses, I would just be stroking every marble statue. Yes. Yeah, just grubby mitts all over everything.
She's also thinking about the curator, and she's like, Vivian generally had a rule to never trust a man with a mustache. And I was like, yeah, me too. It's a good rule. She's like, I'll make an exception for this guy because he's showing me the cool tiaras. But what?
Our brother has a mustache.
Yeah, and you can't trust him right now.
What? I'm sorry, Stefan, if you're listening. Yeah, and then they have another, I think, Israeli restaurant that they go to, and it also sounds delicious.
Wait, back up to the museum. They're talking about how a lot of it's so ugly, and we decided to do this. And I feel that way about a lot of things.
I feel that.
But Vivian is that may be the best surprise I've ever had in my life, and I'm like, that's not saying much considering how much you've talked about how much you hate surprises leading up to this. It has a very low bar to clear.
They go home, obviously have some sexy times. She wakes up and she's like, why am I so cold? Everyone was complaining about Sandringham being cold, but Malcolm's modern apartment is closed too. And then she's like, oh, it's because I'm naked. I'm like, love it. Wonderful. So they have some sex and then they're having breakfast, and then Miles arrives because he has a key.
Miles arrives to passive aggressively. He's like, I'm only here to leave the key because I'm never coming back here again because I hate you now.
Yeah. But Vivian naturally diffuses the tension, and her and Miles
super
chat. Yeah, using her people skills, which I'm very jealous of because I do not possess that in any way. They hang out, and things aren't mended between Miles and Malcolm, but it's still it's opening now the way has been cleared. The way has been cleared for that. And Vivian tells Malcolm how to fix things with Miles, and she's like, you need to apologize. And he's like, what? I don't need to apologize to a child. And she's like, yeah, you do, because you fucking laughed at him. You were a dick, even if you were right. Anyway, they have another delicious dinner at home.
It's New Year's Eve, right?
For New Year's, and then Malcolm has a really cool firework display outside of his window. I guess he's in
awesome
somewhere
apartment.
In central London, and he gets to see the fireworks right from his window, and that sounds amazing. If anyone has an apartment equivalent of that anywhere that they would like to invite me and pay for travel expenses, I would not say no.
This is around the time. So yeah, and Malcolm's like, oh, I just I really like you. Like, I don't want to never see you again. This is when he suggests basically like a long distance booty call is what she calls it. Like he's like, yeah, we could just like show up random weekends and like just hang out, but like not talk in between. And she's like, no, like it's not gonna work. And I don't know. I just like, maybe my standards are too high, but this is a romance book. And like, this is not something that I will frankly tolerate in my romance heroes. Like, this is just unacceptable. Like, if you are not at this point already like planning to drop everything and move, what is the point?
This is one of the downsides of older romance, is that they don't have the impulsivity of youth. And so she goes back to Oakland, and they become postcard pen pals.
Because he talks to Miles. He talks to Miles and they have a good chat, and then he wants to tell her about it. And Miles does decide to go to art school. Right. Yeah.
Well, no. So Malcolm, he decides to go to art school, but then Malcolm gets him to agree to like take a tour of Oxford one more time. And he's like, he was really excited the last time we went to Oxford. So I think I can convince him.
Yeah.
But whatever. They've worked things out and they're having little pen pals. And then Malcolm is like, every time Vivian talks about this promotion that she's getting, she seems like really sad about it. And like, I feel like I should say something as her friend / former lover. And so he's like, does your job make you happy? Then she realizes, she's like, no, actually, like, I like my current job a lot and I don't want to go to meetings. And she like has this brain blast in the middle of a really boring meeting. And she's like, this is going to be my life.
Her brain blast is like, I'm allowed to consider whether it'll make me happy.
Like, yeah. And then she's immediately like, no, that's stupid. And then she's like, hang on, I'm a therapist. Like, I should absolutely be considering like my mental well-being.
The fact that she runs through like all the other things, she's like, well, financially I'm comfortable. Like, I'll have excellent health insurance for the rest of my life. That was one of the reasons I took this job all those years ago, which is like so fucked that you have to consider that's like tied to your job at all. Yeah. Bullshit. But she's like, I'm fine on that front. I don't need this. Like, I'm, financially comfortable. And I can actually just consider, I don't have like a dependent child anymore that I have to think about. And she decides to do what makes her happy. And she goes for it. And then she goes out and buys herself some flowers to celebrate. Malcolm, like, while he's waiting for a reply, he's like worried the whole time. He's like, I should not have brought up like financials to her. Like, it's so taboo, which is like so dumb. Like, who benefits from that? Think about it. Who benefits from no one being allowed to discuss their salary and financial situation?
Not you, comrades. Not you. Don't let the elite win. Rise up, my proletariat brethren, and talk about your salaries with your colleagues.
Because you know what happens when people talk about other people's salaries? They realize, oh, wow, why am I not getting paid that? Who doesn't want you to know
everybody's salaries go up? Everybody's salaries go up. Unionize.
Anyway.
So she sends him a postcard and is like, I'm in love with you. And he panics like a real dummy.
It's so weird to me that these are postcards and not letters, because this is like public. Like, anyone could be reading this. This is like very personal shit to be like putting on a postcard. Anyway, he panics.
And then Miles is visiting and sees the postcard sitting on. He doesn't answer her for like 3 weeks. And she's like, like, I thought he was going to just like ignore it or like write me back and say he didn't feel the same way, or like maybe even tell me he did feel the same way. But I didn't think he would just fucking like never talk to me again. Like, I didn't think he would ghost me.
Yeah, this is along the lines of like him being like suggesting the long distance booty call. Like, I was like, what the fuck kind of romance hero is this? Like, he's more like a fuckboy hero, like, not.
Whatever. But then, no, listen, he comes to his senses. Miles sees the card and he is like, you're being a fucking dumbass. Like, you loser boy are only like doing your job and you're not living your life. Like, this hot lady who's really cool is telling you that she loves you. Like, don't be a dumbass. And Malcolm is like, I'm right. And then he flies to San Francisco and surprises her on her doorstep,
sitting creepily on her front porch. And she's getting home and she's like, "Oh, as a social worker, I don't usually like to call the police, but like, this is really creepy and I live alone." And she's like about to call the cops on him.
She doesn't recognize
before he stands up and he's like, "Vivian, it's me, it's Malcolm." And so, like,
I mean, she lives in a big city. Like, I get it.
No, for sure. But they make up, and then she's like, oh, let's go inside to kiss. My neighbors don't need to show. And something we haven't mentioned is like their mutual aversion to PDA, which I really appreciate. Like throughout, like this is why he pulled over to the side of the road behind some trees to kiss her the first time, because he was like, I'm too professional. Like I can't be seen with this PDA. And she like apparently, because I feel like that can be like, if there's a mismatch with that can be like something that causes tension.
Yes.
But it's like, yeah, I'm like totally on board with them both being like, absolutely not. Like,
Big fan. Anyway, we flash forward to the epilogue. It's the next Christmas. They're decorating the tree. He is, I guess, commuting between London and San Francisco. I took it to mean that he was eventually going to move to San Francisco full time.
I don't know why he wouldn't, but like, why weren't we given that explicitly? It's like your issue with the hating game where we don't find out if she got the promotion. It's like, why did it have to be, oh, he quit his job with the Queen and got a job with a company that has offices in in London and San Francisco? Why isn't it just like he's working for the San Francisco office, you know? And they talk about, they're like, why is there no Christmas cake in the US? And I guess like Christmas cake is a specific thing in the UK, but it got me thinking like,
fucking terrible.
It does sound terrible,
frankly.
But why isn't there cake that's associated with Christmas? You know what I mean? Like I'm going to be making for Secret Santa tomorrow, like a peppermint chocolate cake, but that's just like something I'm just like YOLOing on, you know? It's not like the cake that's, you know, I feel like it would make sense if there was some kind of cake that we ate with Christmas dinner or a pie. I agree, you know?
But also like not at the expense of having whatever the fuck British Christmas cake is, because frankly,
feed it with whiskey for months.
It sounds like alcoholic fruit cake, and fruit cake is already disgusting. And honestly, like I'm not against alcohol or using alcohol in your baking, but something that like like a pastry that tastes explicitly like alcohol seems horrible.
No,
like a pastry that gets you drunk, right? I don't want that.
No, you know what could get me on board? It sounds like the cake version of vodka gummy bears. That's what it sounds like. And honestly, I could be on board with that. If it serves like a dual purpose.
I don't like vodka gummy bears. I don't like Jello shots. Like I don't want to have to put any more. If I'm doing hard liquor, if I'm drinking anything that's not like cider or wine, I don't want to have to put any more effort into consuming this alcohol than just like knocking back a shot. Like I don't want to have to chew anything. I like, if I'm eating gummy bears, I want them to taste like fucking Haribo gummy bears. I don't want them to taste like vodka with a little bit of like sugar that just makes it worse, frankly.
Listen, I would be willing to try it. If someone wants to send me a Christmas cake at no, like, just I'll taste test it for you. Yeah, I'll taste test it for you.
Should we open a P.O. box?
Yeah.
If you email us and you're like, I'll send you a Christmas cake, we will open a P.O.
Here's the
box
thing.
for you
It
to send
sounds like you could just send it and not even tell us, and we could find it 5 months later and it would still be like edible and not spoiled. So
yeah, I mean,
there's no rush.
If it really is just alcohol fruit cake, like that sounds like something that would be like completely non-perishable at all. Like, yeah, it would just last for decades. Well, anyway, they live happily ever after.
Theoretically.
And thankfully, hopefully, I will never have to hear this audiobook narrator's British accent ever again. The end. The end.
The end.
Speaking of something much more pleasant, Catskill.
Meow.
What do you think?
It was very low. I wrote that like how like 3/4 of the way through. It was like very like zero to no references.
Yeah, because even the British royal family is known for its dogs, for its corgis. Which is, by the way, my favorite part of like any royal family adaptation. It's just like the hordes of corgis that are constantly just like running around in the background.
Is that a royal family thing or a Queen Elizabeth thing?
It's Queen Elizabeth, yeah. Specifically like Queen Elizabeth era royal family stuff, constantly corgis. It was like that was the Spencer movie was amazing because there was literally a scene when it was just like a clown car of corgis. Like they open the door and just this horde of corgis poured out.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the British royal family is not cat. Even though lions are the national symbol of England.
Oh, okay. Well,
but it was the current British royal family is very uncat-like, frankly.
What do horses look like with night vision goggles on? Because I watched that nature documentary with lions. No, but listen. As if they look like bears, because I watched that nature documentary and there were lions with like viewed through like night vision goggles, and you know what they fucking looked like? They looked like bears. Okay, so if lions look like bears, and if horses also look like bears, if everything looks like bears under night vision goggles, then by that logic, horses look like lions.
That feels like a stretch to me. Horses night vision
goggles.
Well, it wasn't night vision goggles. It was like
that's
Bluetooth.
what you said it was. I don't know what it was.
It wasn't night vision. I don't know.
It was supposed to be like at night. I don't know.
Okay. Unfortunately, there seems to be a Banksy art piece named Horses Night Vision. So that's all. I found
one picture.
Also, one picture of a horse wearing wraparound, like polarized sunglasses.
Good. I mean, I bet you they are damaged by UV rays too.
Count. Frankly, horses are stupid. This is not me dunking anyone that likes horses. I'm saying horses as an animal are dumb.
Their intelligence
legs are just
low.
Fingers. Like, they're dumb, like, intelligence-wise. They're also just structurally, like, their legs are just fingers. They're just long fingers.
I'm pretty sure that's true of, like, every other animal, too. Like, if you look at big cats, like, dogs, like, they're walking on their toes. Yes, they are.
Okay. But, Rachel, horses literally walk on their fingernails. Hooves are fingernails. They're made of the same thing as fingernails. Like, and if you break a horse's leg, it's dead. Like, you just have to shoot it. They're just structurally, but their literal purpose is to just run super fast. But if they run too fast, then their organs explode. Like, it's just, horses are so dumb. Anyway, they're not intelligent enough to be cats, is what I'm saying.
No, definitely
they're not intelligent enough to count towards the cat scale.
Very low cat scale. However, something that cats in this book have in common is that most cats probably cannot do a British accent.
Oh, no. I beg to differ. Case in point, the Aristocats. The Aristocats.
Is that a British accent or like a transatlantic accent, though? I don't remember.
No, the Duchess, the Aristocat, has her and her kids have British accents, but then the like Tom cat has like a cool like James Dean American accent.
Mm-hmm.
The like street lover cat, orange cat.
Yeah, everybody wants to. Yeah, okay.
Cat.
Cause the cat's the only
yes.
cat.
Anyway, the Aristocats, cats can do British accents, so more points off the cat scale.
Oh my god.
Cats also have aristocracy. See Aristocats.
Yeah.
All right. 1, 2, 3,
2.
1.
I'll do 1. We can't do 1.5. Okay. Do 1.5 as a courtesy. The 2 is a courtesy. I don't know why I added that extra bump.
1. Yeah, 1. Yeah. Because it's not even as fierce as. This is not like a dig at the book, but like at least Destiny's Surrender, like Billy was just like super fierce.
Yeah.
So like that gets the extra point. Yeah. But this is just like, it was an enjoyable Christmas rom-com with no cat presence whatsoever.
No,
unfortunately. Yeah. No, not even mewling or growling. Like, it was really disappointing.
Mm-hmm. In that respect. Yeah.
In that respect, yeah. Not in the food respect. The cats would like the food.
Indeed.
I would like available, I think. Yeah, I too. Like the food. Okay.
Where can they find us, Alison?
On Instagram at We Read It One Night, and on Facebook at We Read It One Night, and on Twitter at We Read It Podcast, and at Gmail, We Read It One Night at gmail.com. And this is, again, we're putting out the call for both a cheese straw recipe and an offer to send us a Christmas cake, one or the other. Or any other comment that you have about the show. Yeah, or both. Like, we would also take that. Please slide into those DMs and do it. Yeah. And also, follow, rate, download, review, subscribe, tell all your friends and family and your neighbors, tell your cats and your dogs. You know,
dragons.
Everyone. Tell your pet dragons, tell the deer in your backyard, like all of them.
Godspeed,
comrade.